Welcome back for another video in our Action RPG series, where we're going to make a health bar. So where we left off, we just finished getting inventory and ranged weapons to work. So when we pick up this bow, it shows up, we can equip it, and then we can fire with it. But right before we want to start getting enemies involved in our game, we're going to want to have a health bar, maybe down here in the bottom left, and then start setting up some code so that the player can actually take health damage, and that we can track that health damage. So to start, let's see. Let's load in some graphics for that health bar. So we're going to go into the UI sprites, and we're going to create a new sprite. So we're going to create a sprite. And this is going to be the background for the health bar. So I'm going to call this SPR underscore UI underscore. I was calling this long bar, and we could probably just call it health bar back. And I probably should be consistent and not use camel case here. So SPR UI health bar back, and then push enter. And then, so for this thing, this is going to be our kind of back bar here. So if we click import, I have a few graphics that should work for this, and they're going to be inside of the UI folder of our assets and under bars. And we want the 2x scale one. Well, actually, I think we could probably do fine with just the regular scale. So we'll take this regular scale one, not the 2x. And so this is what our hit point bar is going to look like. Now, for drawing purposes, I did want to use the centering, since the top left isn't very useful for these, because as you can kind of see, this bar has a border. So lining them up would help if we use like middle left. That way it'll be easier for us to line up our two bars. But other than that, we don't need to change anything else. This doesn't have collision or anything like that. So we do need another one. So we need another sprite, and I'm going to call this SPR underscore UI underscore health bar front. And I'm going to import the green bar. And actually, I do have the white one that would be good for tinting. But the way that we're going to draw it, with essentially cropping the bar, that draw method doesn't have the ability to tint the sprite. So we actually need a sprite that's already green if we're going to do this. So remember, I'm not using the 2x versions. I'm just using the regular ones. And then I do also want to set this to middle left. So that hopefully, with both of these having the center point on that left side in the center, it should line them up correctly. So we can X out of those. Now, since we're doing sprites, we might as well knock out the player ones that we need. So we're going to have a slain animation that will play when the player hits 0 health. And so that way we can kind of indicate that you've been defeated. So let's load that up. So I'm going to right click on this player folder and go to sprite. And this will be called SPR underscore player underscore slain. Now there isn't a direction for this. I've actually just have one sprite set, and that's fine. We don't need to have 4 different directions for the player's slain animation. So import, and then if we jump over to the player, and then into the 64 pixel version, I have a series of player slain 1, 2, and 3. So we want to, I usually just drag select them like this. And then that also loads them in the correct order. If you hit left click and then hold down shift and then select those, you might have to verify that it's going to load them up in the correct order, because it does seem like it wants to put 3 first. Either way, it's really not that hard to drag around our slides. And so that seems good. So we've got kind of the tallest standing one, kind of a crouching or kneeling, and then down. So if we recall, we were using the bottom center for the point of origin for the player. And we don't really need to worry about the collision mask because we're going to be using the other collider instead. But if you did want to set the collision mask just to be on the safe side, one of the fastest ways I think to do this is just to use like snipping tool and then just snip the settings and then move that over to your other monitor. And then just change the settings here. So this was manual ellipse ellipse, and then all of these settings. So again, this isn't going to matter because really at this point the hitbox doesn't matter because we won't be allowed to move, but might as well. And also we're using the other replacement hitbox. I just like to make them all have the correct hitbox anyway. Okay, so we're good with sprites. Now we're ready to start configuring the display of a hit point bar. And so I think the best place, and I don't want to say that it's putting too many jobs on it, but I still think the best place to do this is inside of the game manager. So the game manager is a pretty important object. And so we're going to add more to the draw GUI section. So after all this stuff for dragging and dropping on the inventory, we want to add a section here for health. Now, we need to make sure we have health variables. So that's going to be something we're going to want to check. And also, the health variables are stored on the game manager, not the player. And the reason for that is when we transition to different scenes, we are creating a new player each time. And if we create a new player each time, we wouldn't want to store the hit points there because every time we load a new level, we get our hit points reset. So the game manager is acting as like a persistent object. So we want this to hold the information about our hit points. So we're going to add, and I'm going to call this category just stats underscore HP underscore max. How many hit points do you have as your maximum? And then stats underscore hit points. No, and just, yeah. And then this is how many current hit points you have. So you could, in theory, increase your max hit points over time if you want to do some like experience system or an item that when you pick it up, it raises your max hit points. There's a lot you could play with there. And the way that we code this hit point bar will be friendly to changes to the maximum number of hit points. All right, so let's actually begin scripting this. So this is going to be the section for our UI health bar. So first we have to decide where we want to put it. I want to put it in the bottom left of the screen. So that means as far as margins go, I'm coming in from 0 on the X. So that's kind of easy to calculate. So I'll just say 20. I want my health bar to start 20 pixels in from the side. Then I want to come up from the bottom of the screen. And this is a little bit trickier because we don't want to use the room height because the room height doesn't correspond to my viewport height. So we'll use a command called camera get view height. So this is how you would do that. UI health Y, and actually this should have been X, equals camera underscore get view height. And then we want to get the height of the view camera 0. That is our main camera right now. And then I want to bring it in 20 pixels from the bottom of the screen. So I do minus 20 here. Now, if you wanted to do bottom right of the screen, like down here, you can very easily adapt this camera get view height to the get view width and do the same thing for the X. And so that shouldn't be too hard for you to change if you want to reposition these things. Or if you want in the top right. Okay, so now we want to draw that background sprite. This is the easiest part because we don't really compute any sort of ratios here. Sorry, I was just wondering if I had, there we go, more space to put code. So we want to do draw underscore sprite SPR underscore UI underscore healthbar back. The sprite index we want is 0. And the position we want it is at UI health X and UI health Y. So at that point, we have it drawing my health bar down in the bottom left. So you can see the positioning of where it's going to be. Now, there's a few things that I'm not going to try to address, like if the player is standing here, well, yeah, there's nothing down there. So, like getting the thing to fade if you're standing on it, type of thing. And that crash was actually because I didn't set up the exit zones off that south exit. So it tried to load a level that either didn't exist, judging from my collection of rooms, doesn't exist. So it just crashed. So now let's start calculating the ratio of the actual green part of the bar. And so that will be var bar, we'll call it, health bar width. And that will be the stats HP divided by stats HP max multiplied by sprite get width of the front bar. Then we need to figure out the offset. So this helps out a little bit. And that's just how far indented it is from the edge. Because if you remember, we were using kind of that, what were we? Where is that? So we were using this left edge as kind of the reference point. And so we had to figure out how many pixels this part that says HP is. And you can zoom in and count. I know that it was 28 from when I've experimented with this before. So it wouldn't handle changing graphics. You'd have to manually adjust that number till it looks right. All right, so now we actually want to draw the cropped health bar. So that is the command draw underscore sprite parts. And this one actually, like I said, it doesn't have a command to tint. So the bar had to be, it had to be green. So the first thing we want is the sprite that we're going to try to draw, which is the front of the health bar. Subimage 0. Which pixel of the of this bar are we starting at in the left, which would be 0. Top would be 0. The width is going to be where we actually apply my bar width. So this would be bar underscore health bar width. And as far as the height, we can just compute the height. And actually, that might be easier if we just do it right here. So we just say var health bar height equals sprite underscore get height. And then we reference our sprite here. And then we just can say health bar height. Now the position of where do we want to draw this? So we want to draw it at the position where we drew the back bar, which is UI health X plus my offset. So plus health bar offset X. And then the Y position, this is a little bit trickier because if we just put in 0, oh well, actually let's put in UI health Y. So if we put that in, let's kind of see what this does. So it's actually not respecting that point of the origin point that I set for the bar. It's drawing it starting at the top left of the bar. So the draw sprite command respects the origin that you pick, but this draw sprite part does not. It doesn't respect the origin, and it starts drawing the sprite from the top left there. So we can get the amount, we can get that origin that we set. So when we specify this position to draw it at, we can just say minus sprite get offset. And then this will tell us how far in we set get Y offset. This is how far we set the origin point. So that was kind of an annoying thing to have to deal with, but now it looks centered and looks good. So the other thing that I want to do, just as a feature, is I like to draw the text of the health bar in there. So we'll draw the text of the current health as well, because I think that that's a neat. I don't think we've drawn any text yet, so I think that's a neat thing to add into this. So if we're going to get into text, we will have to set up fonts, because I think it just uses like a default Arial if we don't. So what I would like to do is create a font, calling it FNT underscore default. And that's just the default font that it's going to default to. I might use it for something, but I actually wanted to specify another font. So I'm going to create another font here called font Healthbar, and that's all one word. And I'm going to actually make this font kind of a smaller and more computer-looking font. So I'm choosing like some kind of programmery looking font. So like Consolus is what I was really having in mind. The size 12 is okay. I am going to switch it to bold. So you can play around with the font a little bit, but let's take a look at how to use it. So when we're dealing with text, here's where it's going to get a little bit, I don't want to say ugly, but kind of ugly. We do need to adjust the centering, the alignment, and all of that. So when we start doing this, draw set font. So this will change the font. Now it keeps changed until we change it again. So any other part of the program will be now using this font that we switched to. So we'll have to undo this when we're done. So now we're going to set the vertical alignment to FA, middle. Then we're going to set the horizontal alignment to FA, center. Now we're actually going to draw the text. So that's just going to be the draw text command. And then we want, where are we drawing it? Well, at UI health X plus halfway in on that health bar. So I'll say sprite underscore width, or sprite get width of the back bar divided by 2, and that should bring me into the middle. UI health Y. And what I want to draw is, and actually I feel like, well, let's just put open close quotes. We'll make a var and call this health text. So I want to draw the actual text of my health. And then I'm going to use health text as the string that it's going to draw. Keep the line to being somewhat manageable. Then I want to reset the font settings. So I'm basically just going to copy these 3 lines, paste them, and bring it back to the default font. The default vertical alignment is top, and the default horizontal alignment is left. So I'm just going to reset those back to how it was, just to make life a little bit easier. So when we hit play, now I've got text on my health bar to indicate what it's actually at. And so let's test this, and let's make sure that this is working. So a quick way to test this would just be to throw a key into maybe the player where I can affect this. So in player, I'm going to add a new event for if I key press a letter, and if I press K. If I press K, I want to take some damage. So global.manager. So that gets me the manager, and well, the hit points are pretty easy to get from there, just stats HP minus equals 10. So every time I push this button, I will lose 10 hit points. So we'll hit play. Hit K a few times. Oops, that's L. And you can see that my health slowly is going down. And when we get to 0, nothing happens. But important thing is, as I travel between different stages, it's remembering my health. So now, because the game manager, and this is really our first evidence of the game manager remembering things, when I go into a different stage, my health isn't resetting. And that is really powerful. That's going to be a feature that we're going to use as we load different scenes. So we'll stop here. I'll make the slain animation a separate video, just kind of to compartmentalize this a little bit. So that's how you get a health bar working. If you wanted to do the same for an experience bar, a mana bar, it wouldn't be much more difficult. All you would need is some more stats on the game manager, and you just do the bar the same exact way. So thank you for watching, and tune into the next video where we actually get the player animation for being defeated, and then we locked down controls once we are, and then drop our inventory. So that's exciting. See you then.